Hello, everybody. Back after day one in both Australia and in New Zealand, and two intriguing days. First days of the second test in both of those series. I'm pleased to say, joined as always by Lucas, and back on the show. And been a while, Neil Varani, but good to have you back on as well. How are you? And have you been enjoying the cricket over the last few days and weeks?
I'm good, and the cricket's been intriguing, sort of across countries and continents. It's all been very good. Even the stuff going on in the Caribbean has been enthralling.
Well, good to see you both, and we're going to talk about the day one in both of those second test matches. Before we do, thank you very much to Manscaped.com for their continued support of the Cricket Badger podcast. If you quote Badger when you check out, and why wouldn't you check out at the moment? It's Christmas coming up. There's things to have for yourself and for loved ones. You'll get 25% off at the moment, free shipping, and a couple of little freebies as well in this festive period. So Manscaped.com, quote Badger, is the place to be. Anyway, should we start off with the England performance in New Zealand? And it's been a good day for England, but I must admit, I watched the opening session, and for the first hour, it was all the Kiwis. Had the ball on a string, moving it all over the place, caused England batters loads of problems, and the England batters caused themselves a few problems as well. And then Harry Brook walks out, basically like he's been sponsored to score runs as quickly as he possibly can, swinging at pretty much everything. It came off, as it often does with Harry Brook, and his century, arguably the difference between the two sides. England made 280, all out for 280, which probably round about par, maybe a bit more than par. Thanks largely to Harry Brook's Herculean 123 before he was run out. And then at close, 86 for 5, the Kiwis, so trailing by 194 runs, Lucas. And Harry Brook was just ridiculous.
Considering the first session was just a green top monster, New Zealand were all over England, especially Matt Henry. Southey didn't get it quite right. Cawley went after him a little bit. But Matt Henry, he had the ball on a string, causing all sorts of problems. The green tops in New Zealand can be deceptive because they're soft. They're not hard compared to what you get in Australia with green tops, where they're actually hard. They bounce. In England, they're very slow. So yes, they do make green tops, but usually the batting first innings is still pretty big despite the green tops. And I thought the first session we saw a glimpse of that, as always, in New Zealand. Get through it and you can make runs. And my goodness, did Harry Brook do that? Credit also to Ollie Pope, also did that. Very good partnership. But yeah, it's just fascinating how that happens in New Zealand. They roll through anyone, especially Matt Henry, who's the last 2 years has been world class. Very, very good bowler.
Yeah, really good bowler.
Southey a little bit wayward. Wasn't his day or session per se. But yeah, Harry Brook was completely fantastic. In his typical Harry Brook way, flamboyant, playing scoop shots, reverse sweeps, a typical Harry Brook innings. And he did, unlike the first match, no one dropped him 5 times. He made all of his luck, and he was just simply fantastic. New Zealand were good in the field, especially in that first session, especially Latham was very good in the field. But when they had a partnership between Brook and Ollie Pope, surprising Ollie Pope backs up. We talked about that last show, James, where he might just go away, but he didn't. Looks like he's found the spot. Fantastic, and they really put England into a dominating position.
It's bizarre. I mean, you look at Harry Brook, 123 off 115 balls, Neil, 11 fours and 5 sixes. Ollie Pope, 66 he made from 78 balls, 7 fours and 1 6. Other than those two, 123 and 66 they made. The next highest score, 18 from Chris Wokes. And only Zach Crawley and Jacob Bethel, apart from those, got into the teens with runs. So it is 2 monster innings, really, with a load of pretty mundane stuff in between. And without those two, that partnership, and I mean, England's run rate, Neil, was over 5 for the innings, and obviously during their partnership, it was more than that. And it almost seemed to me that they had made a calculation. It's not cricket as we know it. It's not cricket as we know it, because it's a green top. It was moving all over the place, and rather than sit there and wait to be out and try and grind it out and get through that difficult period, they opted to basically have a swing. And it came off, and they seemed to make the calculation, because I think they were 125 or something at lunch. Seemed to make the calculation. It's better to get runs on the board and be all out quickly, but actually get runs on the board, than be all out quickly and not have any runs on the board. That seemed to be the kind of the mindset.
Well, I mean, we've been seeing that from England for basically since Stokes started. And the only person who has consistently got high scores is Joe Root. But England have counted on at least 4 or 5 people making quick 40s and then building an innings total off the back of consolidated smaller contributions, which is very much the way that England have played white ball since Morgan came in.
Yeah,
it's not the old way of a couple of people getting really big scores. It's a load of people getting reasonable scores, and cumulatively you've got a lot. I look at that scorecard and think, who have New Zealand still got in at the moment? I
New
Blundell
Zealand,
and Mitchell.
as they stand overnight, New Zealand 86 for 5, as I said, and the not out batters, Will O'Rourke is 0 not out, and Tom Blundell 7 not out. O'Rourke coming in as a night watcher, as we say these days. Glenn Phillips obviously being protected there, so they've got a little bit to come, but not a huge amount.
But one of the things you often see in New Zealand, not as much as say Australia with the old style kookaburra, is that you get new ball conditions. England, both tests have been around 70 for 4 before middle order runs have kind of taken it away. And I don't think New Zealand are as far out as it would look because of that new ball. You've got it moving around, especially with the grass on the wicket. So I think from the highlights I've seen on X and stuff, Harry Brook has just been excellent. But I think there's still space for New Zealand to do that. The other thing that we've often seen, isn't this the ground where people bowl first, like 80% of the time, if they win the toss, because it tends to be green at the start and then properly flattens out. And because of the conditions in New Zealand, you often don't get the same deterioration that you would do in other places. So, I mean, I could possibly see it being a draw, even at the speed that England play.
England don't do draws, Neil.
No. The speed at which they play and the lack of care they often have over their own wickets, along with the excessively attacking field settings and bowling tactics they have, don't do it. But this is a place that lends itself to a draw. So England ahead at the moment, but still plenty of space for New Zealand to bring it back. The thing I found interesting is man of the series in the greatest away series win of all time. Not getting a game, is he? Is Will Young now an Asia specialist along with Ajaz?
Well, yeah,
Seems like
he did really well in India, didn't he?
He was superb, absolutely brilliant.
I am watching Harry Brook at the start of his innings. It was almost like a horror film or something you watch from behind the sofa with your kind of hands in front of your eyes, because it was literally Lucas. Swing miss, play miss, smack it for 6, swing hoik miss, smack it for 4. It was just it was almost like playing stick cricket or something weird. It wasn't normal cricket. It was bizarre because he'd just come out with that mindset that he was going to have a real crack at it. And obviously it came off, but he could quite easily have gone in the first over. And if that had been the case, England would have been in a right mess, a right pickle. But for somehow, at the moment, Harry Brook, I mean, there will be times, I'm sure, in the future where Harry Brook goes on a run of trying the same thing and it doesn't come off. But at the moment, everything he's touching is turning to gold, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Crawley did try to do the same thing when he first batted in his innings. Just try to blast everything.
Sorry to jump in, but don't you think there's a big difference in that Crawley doesn't trust his ability to stay in, so he swings because it's the only thing he can do, whereas Harry Brook has got a very good defence and could stay in and grind it out if he wanted to, but he opted to go down the attacking route because Crawley hit a 6 early, but then basically played around a fairly straight ball. And he looks woefully out of form at the moment.
Well, when you're out of form, usually you try to blast your way into form. David Warner did that against South Africa. We were talking about when he hit that 200 against Nortje and Co and Rabada. There was talk that that was going to be his last series, and then he just went gunpowder against an attack. So sometimes players do that just to play themselves into form. Sometimes it doesn't come off, sometimes it does. With Zach Crawley's, advancing, the second ball of the innings to Tim Southee, batting outside of his crease. It seems to me he just wanted to blast, into form, which sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. With Harry Brook, as you said, it was way more neutral, well in control. When he needed to play defense, he played defense. So it's interesting with Crawley because, as you mentioned, that this isn't a new thing for Crawley. He's been in and out of form for months, probably years. And when you're going to get picked, you don't really feel that pressure. But I felt this match today, I felt that for the first time he felt under pressure. He needed to do something, and he changed his approach. I know he's been playing that way, introducing the baseball, but to go out second ball and just try to hit everything for 6, that told me for the first time in a while that he's now actually feeling the pressure. So it's not a good
find
feeling.
It bizarre. The commentators was saying, I think this was in relation to Ollie Pope, but you could say the same about Zach Crawley. They were saying there isn't a reserve batter in England's squad, so therefore they feel there isn't any pressure because they feel as if they're in the side for the entire series. But if you look at the squad, you've got Ollie Robinson, the Durham keeper, formerly of Kent, who is the reserve keeper called up to cover. And obviously, Ollie Pope did quite well in the first test. So he kept his place, and Ollie Robinson's watching from the sidelines. But you look at the first-class record of Zach Crawley. He averages 32 in first-class cricket. Ollie Robinson averages over 37. So you could argue there's a better batter, basically, watching from the sidelines than Zach Crawley is certainly showing at the moment in an England shirt. He's had a couple of false dawns, Zach Crawley, because I was all over him at the start. I said, shouldn't be in the side. And then he started to look as if he was making a fist of it, playing the ball a bit later. It obviously worked on his game. But he seems to have gone back to where he was. And at the moment, he doesn't look like he should be in that England team. Anything else to say? Because we're going to keep these updated ones a little bit shorter than the previews. Anything else that either of you two have got to say on New Zealand against England as it stands overnight on day one?
Are they going to actually manage Bryden Cars? Because it looks like you found one there. However, every time England found a fast bowler, they basically done a Pakistan lights, played them in every single format, every single game, and just ground them into the dirt. And I think they all go down with stress fractures, don't they?
Yeah. Well, we said on the preview, or I said on the preview, that the one thing that surprised me with England's team for the second test was they hadn't rotated any of the bowlers, because I think the batting had basically picked itself. If you take out the Zach Crawley debate, and Zach Crawley, I think, could score 50 runs in the next 2 years and still be picked. So that seems to be set in stone. But got Ollie Stone, Matty Potts on the sidelines, who could quite easily come in and do a job for England. And I agree with you. I think with Brian Cast, they have found an absolute diamond. He has surprised me. I knew he was a good player. Said this before on this pod, but knew he was a good player, but didn't know he was quite as good as this. And he's really stepped up. And some players, I think Jacob Bethel's one, Brian Cast is another. You stick the 3 Lions, you stick the baggy green, you stick whatever on them. They suddenly become a bit taller, suddenly become better. They kind of, with the increased stakes, they grow as players. With Bryden Cast, he does look like he's born to play Test cricket.
I'm not having Bethel in that conversation yet.
Bethel is good. He's been picked way too early, but he's good.
Yeah, but he's getting discussed like he's like Rob Quiney was with what was it, Lucas? The greatest 9 that Mickey Arthur had ever seen when Quiney made his debut.
I did see a comment because he played a couple of beautiful shots, Bethel, last night, where he drove down the ground, really good quality shots. And then he was out next ball, kind of like mistiming, scuffing a pull shot behind. But after the second drive, the commentator on at the time said, that is just an example of what a fine top-class cricketer this lad is. Look at his record. He's done nothing apart from showing signs that he could be very, very good indeed. And I think definitely worth persevering with Jacob Bethel. But I do agree the hyperbole with him is maybe a little bit extreme at this stage in his career. Let's move on, shall we? In fact, before we move on, let's again say thank you to manscaped.com for their support of the Cricket Badger podcast. Much appreciated, manscaped.com. Quote Badger when you get on their site. Get yourself some Christmas presents off that site. We'll be back in a few seconds' time to talk all things Australia, India. Green there, 20% off. It's 25% off during this festive period. Quote Badger. And you also get a couple of freebies as well. So well worth getting on to manscaped.com and quoting Badger when you check out. So let's move on then to Australia, who are back in action after being beaten in the first test by India. India all out for 180. And thanks largely to Mitchell Starc's exploits, 6 wickets for the left armour. And then Australia having a tricky time towards the end of the day, potentially. 86 for 1 from 33 overs. Marnus Labuschagne's got into the 20s. He's 20 not out. And Nathan McSweeney, good to see him after a dodgy, ropey first test where he looked a bit like a rabbit in headlights. 38 not out overnight and a chance to kick on from here. And Lucas, we'll start with you because it's been Australia's day in that test. After the disappointments of test match number 1, and I know what you're like, you were down in the dumps and feeling terrible after the first test. You must feel a bit happier after day 1.
Well, I thought we were absolutely outstanding today, especially one Mitchell Starc, who now averages something under 10 with the pink ball. Something just ridiculous. I'm surprised Mitchell Starc doesn't request more pink day-night test matches in Australia. I'm surprised he doesn't say, I want all 4 of the
He can request all he likes, but Mitchell Starc might have power, but he doesn't actually set the fixture list.
Smart, he says, hell, just make every single one of them a day-night test match. Goodness me, you'd take 600 wickets. No, he was unbelievable with his swing. Seam. The pitch did surprise me because it felt like, well, the talk was it was going to be the world's flattest pitch. There's going to be scores of 400, 450 plus. And then when I saw the grass on, I could not actually believe what I saw. So I don't know if that was just a couple of little fibs by the curator or Cricket Australia, but that really surprised me. I would have liked India. I would have liked India to bowl first. I thought they missed a trick. I thought with a little bit of grass, with Australia batting on the run, they're bleeding, they're on the run. I thought if they would have got him in early, attack them, see if they get them 4 or 5 down, that would have put even more doubt into their minds. That's probably been me ultra aggressive. I was a captain once, and I do go down the ultra aggressive route. So a bowling captain, James. So I like to bowl myself a lot, but no.
Oh, there's a shot.
I sent myself.
From both ends, Lucas. Did you?
I tell you what, it was a 42-degree day once, and I won the toss. And everyone thought I was going to bat, and I thought no, I'm going to bowl. You should have seen the faces of the fielders. I got it that day. They were shattered that day. Didn't really talk to me that much, and plus I didn't have a good day in the field either.
And there in a nutshell, listeners, is Lucas's captaincy career. His team don't talk to him; they hated him, and he didn't stay captain.
Oh yeah. So, but anyway, enough of that. No, Mitchell Starc was absolutely fantastic. Bolins, he could have picked up 4 or 5 wickets if his foot behind the line. If Karaja could have taken catches, McSweeney drops 1. So Australia, they were pretty poor in the field at times. India got a hold of him, especially the middle order. I think it was Rana who just took them, just destroyed Starc. He looked $1 million. And again, the ball was zipping around, and I think it's the right way to play on a green top is to go out and attack. We saw that with Jaiswal and Rohit Sharma in South Africa, where they were chasing something, a low score, and they just thought, well, the hell, they were just going to blast their way into oblivion into it, and they got there. The bowling side of India, I thought India were poor. I thought they were terrible, actually. They're way too short, way too wide. Bumrah looked $1 million. Well, he looked like 5 cents with that pink ball. Now, I do have a theory.
We'll come back to that in a second, because I want to get Neil's thoughts before we see
I can see Neil's not happy with that, but
he was shaking his head.
I do have a theory.
He was shaking his head through your chat about the toss and what have you. I mean, I'll let you come on to that in a second, Neil. But at 86 for 1, Australia in very good position. But if you're India in that camp, you're saying, let's get out there, let's take 3 or 4 in the first hour tomorrow, and we're right back into this test. It's certainly not over yet, is it?
No, not at all. I think day-night tests are weird because you've got instead of the usual almost linear progression of a test match that we're all used to, you've now got the added differences in batting difficulty due to the lights and how it affects the pink ball. I think Australia are definitely ahead. I think they've been the better team. But we saw 1 over from Ashwin, and we saw some spin. And I know that Nathan Lyon has got an excellent record at Adelaide. So on that basis, I'm going to say I'm pretty happy with the decision at the toss. The usual way the Adelaide pink ball tests go is that Australia bat first, and then they'll declare at the end of the second session, day 2, having toughed out the third session on day 1, and they'll just grind through. That should have been the plan. And then you've got the safety net of if you do get skittled in the first innings, then you should have the best conditions for bowling at the end of day 1 to try and get back. One thing I think that was good, and actually was the complete opposite to what Lucas was saying about blasting your way out of the green top. I thought India were allowed to keep a handle on the scoring rate because McSweeney and Labuschagne basically stayed very compact and refused to play at the swing ball outside the off stump.
And they're fighting for their places as well, aren't they? Both of those two.
And they were brilliant, but it was very, very compact. And really, they only went after it a little bit towards the end, where they felt in and the bowlers were a bit more tired because they're in their second spell. But it was when it was a bit leg sidey, when they got it wrong. If it was kept sort of between off stump and maybe a fourth, fifth, there was a lot of good leaving. There was
Mm.
a bit of playing and missing, but not a huge amount. They didn't go all out after it and have got themselves into this really good spot. Um, I thought Australia bowled excellently, apart from, I'd probably say the first hour and a half, where they didn't target the stumps in the same way that India didn't, Australia didn't, and that was the period that Gill and Rahul looked completely untroubled. I think I saw a quote about an hour in uh, from Ben Jones saying that only 2 balls so far would have hit the stumps, and that was the first 2 balls in the innings, which I think was the LB, and I think Gill played just a forward defensive to the first ball he faced. No others would have. So Australia in that first hour got it wrong with their bowling plans as well, and Rowell and Gill looked very comfortable. Boland attacked the stumps a lot more, as he certainly does more than other bowlers when I've seen him. Lucas will have seen him a lot more in Shield, but he seems to be a proper out the stumps bowler rather than looking for nicks. So him coming into the attack actually changed stuff, even if he overstepped with what may or may not have been an edge. Because I think we were saying Snicko didn't show anything, but everyone went up. Raoul walked off, and I thought I heard something over the mic, but don't know. And from then, I thought they were very good. Virat I think, got caught trying to withdraw from a shot. I think possibly the fact that he'd come out with an attacking mindset, and he'd started really nicely. Got a 4 and a 3 that looked very sweet, and then he came forward to Stark, and then was trying to get his back out of it because he wasn't quite there, and it just clipped off. And from then on, Stark and Boland especially were superb. Nitish Reddy again, excellent. I don't know how long he'll go, but he looks to have the temperament for the game. And then yeah, I thought Australia batted very circumspectly and really well. We were a bit wide. I think that was also for fear of spraying it or giving easy runs down the leg side, basically shutting off half of the pitch while still maintaining a threat. And to be honest, I honestly thought, given the form they were in, Labuschagne and McSweeney would be a lot more nicky. I thought they'd play away a bit more because of the pressure that they were under. And I think that's what India were targeting. So we had well over 50% balls were left. I think, yeah, hats off to them for batting so conservatively, because it was the right thing to do, basically, to try to get to tomorrow, hopefully sunshine and stuff, and easier batting conditions.
And you can get that with a pink ball as well. You get those moments in the kind of stereotypically the twilight zone where it can boomerang, but then that pink ball can go a bit soft and be pretty easy to bat against. Lucas, you've got balls in hand here. I'm going to do something that we've not done before with you. I'm going to put you on solo layout. Sorry, viewers, you've got him only on your screen. Remember when you're doing this little demonstration, Lucas, that this is going to go out as audio as well later. So be as descriptive as you can be, but take it away. A bit of a masterclass here from Lucas about red ball and pink ball.
Yeah, and when opposing teams, it's not just India that are a bit wide. It's all teams that come to Australia. They're a bit wide. One of it is like a practice with the pink ball. Now I've got a brand new Kookaburra ball. This is actually from 2011 because I was a bowler and I haven't actually used it. I've had it for 10 years now. Now this is where before they put the extra lacquer. So this was before that. As you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic. This is a pink ball. Now, believe it or not, this looks like 100 overs old. This is not. This is actually 35 overs old. And again, this is before they put the lacquer onto this ball. Now, I know this is a horrible comparison, but in my hand, when I was bowling like the new ball and a pink new ball, I preferred the pink new ball out of my hand.
Just for people listening, Lucas, your red ball looks pristine. Your pink ball looks like it's been eaten by a dog.
It looks like it's been absolutely taken down. It's like what Harry Brook did today to New Zealand. But no, this is like 35 overs old, so it's not that old. It looks absolutely horrible. Again, this was before the lacquer, got hold of it, and yeah. So out of the hand, so when I'll grip a ball. So out of the hand, I actually preferred the pink ball. I felt it was a bit more softer, which it, kind of was. I thought it was a bit more lighter, which it wasn't because they weighed the same grams. But from personal experience, I actually preferred to bowl with a pink ball because I felt it better coming out of the hand. And with bowlers, it can be quite different. And with Mitchell Stark, for some reason, he loves it out of his hand. His seam movement with that pink ball is just as good as it is with the red ball. And I noticed the Channel 7, the local thing, they did a close up with Boomerang, and he was experimenting a little bit with his fingers position. So he was trying for an off swinger, then the in swing. It seemed to, the commentary was he wasn't quite sure what to bowl, which is ridiculous because he's the world's best bowler, by a country mile. And I just thought he just didn't have the control. None of the Indian players had the control, and I thought they were just too wide. That can happen if you don't like the feel of a ball. Now, with the red ball, with the changes made by umpires, right, they've now decided that the bowlers cannot pick which ball they get. That's now up to the umpires, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Crazy stuff. But with the feedback, some bowlers and captains have said, well, maybe they haven't picked the best ball. Other captains say, well, this is the greatest ball ever by the umpires. So it's taken out of the bowler's hand. So personally, I prefer the pink ball because it comes out softer, it comes out lighter. I like the seam of it, especially when it's upright. Again, this is very hard to tell when it's been smashed. So different bowlers will like different balls, and I think because not just India, but South Africa, India, New Zealand, England, all teams that have been hammered with this pink ball, they're not used to it, so they don't really know what it's like out of the hand. Now they do obviously train with it, but you cannot emulate match conditions. That's why you can train as much as you like until you actually be with it in a match. It's very, very difficult if you do not like that ball. James Anderson, the only time James Anderson's looked $1 million is with the pink ball. That was in Adelaide, and we took 5 wickets for basically nothing. So again, it's a horrible comparison because Anderson's probably one of the greatest swing bowlers of all time. But it seems like he's the only visiting bowler that's had success with the pink ball, compared to, Trent Boult, Southey, Stuart Broad, the Indian bowlers, before they've played Ishant Sharma. So it's personal, personal belief, but, a new ball, can feel a little bit discomfort coming out of the bowler's hand. So I think that's got a big play of it. So I expect India to be better, but the last test when they played a pink ball in Australia, from memory, they weren't good in that with the ball either. I know you can laugh and they got rolled and whatnot, but with the ball they weren't good as well. Australia still made high scores. So I just think the practice makes perfect.
Just
And
before we move on to a
personal
shake to Neil Varane that's shaking his head, you mentioned about the umpires picking the ball now, not the players. There was a big thing on in New Zealand at the start where apparently the New Zealand bowlers had requested a different box of balls because they didn't like the balls they were given. So there must be some player input still.
Yeah, they want to feel the ball. You know, they want to, as you can see, like before. I don't know why it was taken out of their hands. That ludicrous decision. But that's probably from a bowler speaking. But you know, umpire will pick a random ball. They may not like it how it feels, and that's got nothing to do with it being pink or being red. But it's just personal preference. And I just think visiting players or visiting bowlers with a pink ball, I don't think they like it because they don't practice with it a lot. In match days, let's face it, Australia is the only really place in the world that played day-night Test match cricket. India, you know, haven't played one since Bangladesh. I think last time England played one was against South Africa. So they hardly play it. But Australia do. And as we can see with Mitchell Starc, he has absolutely no problems with it. And so does Josh Hazlewood's also very good with the pink ball. And we just seen Boland, you know, he had no problem with his line. You know, he was attacking as ever. So I do believe it is personal preference, and it can take a while to get used to the ball.
Neil, come to you. Let's round off this chat today about two intriguing Test matches. It has to be said. My final questions to you concern the India team, and a lot of talk about maybe starting to enter the twilight zone for Rohit and for Virat. I thought that Rohit moving down the order I mean, he's coming in at number 5, isn't he, in this test? And he did in the warm-up game ahead of the test as well, rather than open as he has been doing recently in the last few years. I thought that might be a masterstroke because it would be against an older ball. He'd come out and he'd dominate, and it would be like watching the old Rohit, but again, out fairly cheaply. And is he coming to an end? Because he's been one of my favourite players. I mean, as you know from the IPL pods that we've done, I'm a Mumbai Indians fan in the IPL. Rohit Sharma, fantastic captain, brilliant player for Mumbai Indians, and at his best, can't think of a better player to watch. Maybe AB de Villiers, but Rohit Sharma, absolutely dominant. But it just looks like he may be just running out of batteries.
Well, I think it's undoubtable that he's coming to the end because he's 37. As soon as you get to that stage,
that's just counting numbers, isn't it?
Yeah. Every game's you're close to the end. I don't think it's we can take him off just one innings where he came in while the ball was still reasonably new. So, and I think there was a lot of talk about he's making this huge sacrifice to dropping from opening. Well, the majority of his Test career has been at 5 and 6. He'd scored a number of centuries from there. He moved up the order due to necessity because I think Shikhar Dhawan wasn't doing well at the time, and they saw that as the best option, give it a punt, because he's worked so well in white ball. But he's been a middle order batter in red ball for a long, long period of time, and that's not an issue. I thought he looked fine. I mean, he wasn't getting out in the stupid ways that we often see Rohit do. Generally caught at square leg going for 6 after he's already hit 2 and then falling for a trap. And it's, I mean, he got out to Scott Boland, I think it was, LB. I mean, early in innings, you sometimes misjudge. You haven't been in long enough to be out of form, I think is the Ian Chappell quote.
Yeah.
If you're out in the first 10 balls, then there's no form to lose there. My personal view was that I thought the end of this WTC cycle, he may give up red ball. I don't know if he's going to make it to the ODI World Cup, so he might choose to give up internationals completely. But I think that's more an age thing rather than a rather than a skills thing.
I sometimes think, Neil, with Indian fans, and we obviously they're all over social media, and they are prone Indian fans, with all due respect to you all, from being very high and very low, swinging from one to the other. But I do think there is a how do I put this? A lot of Indian fans are kind of trying to force the door shut on the likes of Rohit Sharma and Virat. You've served your time, let's bring in somebody else. I think those players have earned the right a little bit to go when they want to go. Yes, there's a limit to that, but and there is selections, and there's got to be conversations to be had at some stage. But you can't, these are legends of Indian cricket. Virat particularly, in terms of his runs at Test level, they can't go on forever. But I think fans have got short memories when it comes to wanting rid of them now.
I think there needs to be more nuance with that, especially with Virat. Even when he hadn't been scoring centuries, there were a number of innings where he looked absolutely top class.
And his average wasn't awful, was it?
No, I mean, he averaged last year. It was somewhere around 45, 55.
So when Joe Root has a bad year for England, he's averaging 37. Most English batters would kill for that.
Yeah. No, I don't believe in the get the right to choose their exit. I thought CA made a massive mistake with the way that David Warner's handled.
I'm not suggesting they go on until they're 85 because they refuse to go. But there's got to come a time where there is a conversation. But I think soaring them off at the first sign of a couple of poor innings is a little bit mean.
Oh no, absolutely. Although I'm not going to lay it purely on India fans. We've just come off 2 weeks of sack Smith, sack Uzi, sack Marnus.
And it's the man in the top right-hand corner. It's the bloke in the top right corner of your screen that's doing that.
Well, Lucas has been one of the more sensible voices I've heard from Aussie fans, so that puts everything in perspective.
It's a very low bar, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think cricket fans and maybe the world as a whole has got a lot more reactionary, and there's a lot of "What have you done for me lately?" as to paraphrase Janet Jackson.
Yeah. That well-known cricketer, Janet Jackson. Yeah. Can we finish then? We're gonna round off this pod now. Not going to give you the right to reply there, Lucas. We'll go with I sometimes do on Twitter the Badger Viz, win Viz kind of scenario. Let's go with New Zealand, England. Start with you, Neil. In terms of percentages of who's going to win that test, what would the Neil Viz be at the moment?
I think it's a good 65% England. I think New Zealand have basically got to bat out tomorrow, which isn't outside the realm, but they need to get close and at a minimum take time out the game to get a draw.
I'd be around about the same as well. Would you concur with that, Lucas?
Yeah, I think a little bit high. I think 70-30. I don't see a way back for New Zealand. Maybe if Blundell, can find some form, but he's the only one really there that can make run. Or Phillips, on his day, but they would need probably a 200 partnership just to get back into it. Don't see it happening.
They could win from just behind, but they're a bit too far behind as things stand right now. In terms of Lucas Viz, then on the Australia against India, where would you stand on that?
90-10. India are gone. They won't win this Test match because I can guarantee you that they won't win it. They're not. They can't bowl with a pink ball. Boomerang can't bowl with a pink ball. There was no evidence today. There was no evidence in the practice match. Look at the practice match. There's no evidence there either. Sam Constas, who by the way made another 50 in the Sheffield Shield. How he's not playing, I've got no idea. Another conversation another day.
55 not out overnight, Sam Constas. 90%. You're going to stick with that, are you? You're going to put your reputation on that, right? Okay. I'm going to go a lot less. I'm going to go a lot less than that. I'm going to go 68%, I think. Because I do think there is real potential for India to get it right tomorrow morning. and for it to all of a sudden start to become a lot more level playing field. I think Australia got every chance of getting a first innings lead, but that might not be as pivotal as it could be in another test match. So I think India are very much still in this test. What about you, Neil? Neil Viz on that one?
I would say I'd say it's about 50% Australia win, 20% India win, 30% match abandoned because South Australia can't pay their electricity bills.
or Lucas streaks onto the pitch. He's there on day 3. So
was that you with the beer snake getting in Marnus's eye line?
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me because it would have to be. I would have to be drinking, and I don't drink. But no, that's a different lot. The LA crowd down there. Regardless if India are 90% or Australia 90%, I just hope there's a damn day 3. If I don't really care. I just want to, I paid a lot of money for those tickets, and I'll be held to see an Australian collapse tomorrow, and then get rolled in 2 days. So the hell with that.
Well, there you go. There you go, viewers and listeners. As always, it's all about Lucas. It's all about Lucas and what he wants. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching and listening. And thanks to Neil. Good to see you again, Neil. Hopefully, we'll see you again as we go through over the next few weeks. And Lucas, as always, thank you very much to you. So have a good in between cricket. There's not a lot of in between cricket at the moment, as Lucas was saying. He's been up all night. Now he's going to go off and watch more cricket. But it's good to have you all with us on the Cricket Badger podcast, and we'll see you again very soon indeed. Whether it's 90% or not, it's very good cricket right now.